I did something no actor can do. I cut myself out, which proves I'm not an actor. And I had created a thing in there, lizard on a stick, which was like McDonald's.
Lizard on a stick, fresh. Look, good and fresh.
It was pretty good, but it didn't belong in the movie.
We did a lot of training with the stunt coordinator, Terry Leonard, a lot of writing lessons, had a lot of martial art lessons. So there was a lot of prep work, actually, before we got involved in it.
We had Yamasaki, who was our sword master, and he really trained them in the art of swordsmanship and that karate style sword fighting and all of that. Then I'd look at the routine and I would enhance it or detract it just very briefly. I'd have everybody at 8 o'clock in the morning for horseback riding till 10:30, and then they'd go off to the gym and work with Yamasaki.
It was like really extensive kind of a training camp, an ongoing training camp, and including the weight training and all those things, because you wanted to make sure that the body doesn't just look very muscular, but that it also looks as smooth and as fluent with its performance with the sword moves and all this. And all of those physical activities had to become second nature. Every fight scene in the movie were approached pretty much the same way, which was that first we read what was on a page, and then we talked to the director and listened to him very carefully of what he would like to see, and add and put other dimensions to that scene that maybe is not on the page. So we could ask questions about the fight scene, because some fight scenes would involve 20 people at one given time, and everyone is wielding a sword and swinging a sword. Some wield swords, and some plastic swords, fiberglass swords, or aluminum swords. So depending on how close one got, this determined on what kind of a sword was used, or how close you were to the camera to make sure that it looks believable. So we always approached those fight scenes like that. We talked about it and all that. Then the stunt coordinator, Terry Leonard, would go out there with us, and he would then choreograph it with the other stuntmen.
The adventures that John Milius and I have been on are really a highlight of my career. And he's been a very, very loyal friend, and that's a very rare commodity in this business today. There's people that I've risked my life for that today they can't remember my name, but John does, and that means a lot to me.
The world of Conan was Germany and Eastern Europe. So we went to former Yugoslavia and we started pre-production on the movie there, and we worked there for 3 or 4 months. And then we started getting a little bit concerned about the political situation, and we decided it was probably safer to move the picture out of Yugoslavia, and we moved to Spain. And so we postponed the picture by 6 months. I remember the whole idea was to start in January because we wanted the snow for the big opening scene in the snow, and of course, as usual, it did not snow. So we started putting this fake snow on the ground and all that, and then we eventually went up there to shoot, and finally it did snow right when we needed it.
I always thought that a screenplay should open with something very dramatic, you know, with either dramatic idea or dramatic vision. And there's nothing like a village being wiped out to open a movie.
First thing I asked John is, what is the Wheel of Pain supposed to be? Is it just a big mean thing out in the middle of nowhere to torture little kids? John kind of wrote it as though it was just a big mean thing, and I suggest that we at least cynically pretend that it's there for a purpose, that it grinds grain or something. So I designed the thing to echo some Scandinavian Viking ship carvings and do it all in wood, and looked just great. But I think the biggest problem we had was that it was so well balanced that when Arnold tried to get on to actually push the thing, it just instantly spun, and the next spoke came around and hit him in the back of the head. You know, it's like there was no effort at all to push it. You know, so for a while there, we actually had to have part of the crew, you know, on the other side of the wheel, out of the shot, pushing against Arnold, so that it would look like it was hard to push.
Not only did I have nothing on, but they had the wind machine on, the most powerful wind machines. They were like 10 feet high. And they threw snow in there, so the snow blows right into my body. So I said, the only thing I want to ask for is I can get some hot tea with some schnapps. So that's what we ended up doing, so I keep warm at all, because it was like unbelievable cold. But it was a great idea to show first the feet of a little kid, and then of a bigger kid, and then a medium-sized kid, and then finally Conan.
The first couple days of shooting were kind of anticlimactic because the training had been so intense that by the time we got to really shooting, it was pretty easy, you know. Arnold tells a story about the wolves really chasing him, and they really were, because I don't think those dogs were very well trained. They attacked their own master several times while we were there.
So we did the scene, and I ran. And the first time we shot it without those wolves, and the second time we shot it with it. And sure enough, everything that could go wrong went wrong. I somehow got to the place where I was supposed to climb up and couldn't find my first step. And the next thing I knew was this wolf jumping on my back, ripping me down from the top of the rock, and I'm falling down and injure myself, and the front of this animal was right in my face like this, just totally, and the animal trainer was luckily right there on top of it, pulling it away and stuff like that. So these were the first few stitches. This was like still in the morning. It hasn't got noon yet on the first day of shooting when I already got my first few stitches with the medic there. You know, and in Spain, it's not a doctor that comes to stitches up your back. It's a medic that just goes, yeah, I got a needle there, and he starts stitching you up. I'm sitting there the first day of shooting. So it was quite an interesting beginning, I would say.
And then I remember the thing where Arnold did fall down the rocks, and he looks and he's bleeding, and he says, "I'm bleeding." And I said, "Yeah, look, it looks great. Don't touch it, you know." And he says, he goes, but I'm bleeding, you know. And then I said, the pain is only momentary, but the film is eternal.
Pain is temporary, but movies are forever. He says, this movie will be forever.
There was one accident that was very, very bad for me, where my index finger got severed. It was in the battle sequence when we were inside the castle, and we were under a time limit, and I was working with an extra. Probably should have been a stuntman in that routine. And as I remember, the guy did the wrong move, which was called a parry, and his sword slid down and then cut my index finger.
It was unfortunate. She cut her finger pretty bad, and they had to take her to the hospital and get sewed up and everything. But the concept of making an action film with major stars, there's always that element of risk. You try and wring out all the options that you have and try and make it perfectly safe, but every once in a while somebody's going to get nicked.
John Milius, instead of saying, "Oh my God, are you all right?" I remember him saying, "Valeria would never let that happen again."
In those days, you did not have the visual effects. You could not go and through a computer create the snake and have me maybe fight against nothing and then the snake in later on. Things that we do today. And there you had to rely on a craftsmanship and on the talent of the people that would build a mechanical snake. A snake that looks exactly like a snake and has the texture of a snake with gigantic mouth like this and really long and big, but it had to really move.
When the snake was built, it worked really great, but it wouldn't fit in the set. Only part of the snake would fit in there. You could only push the front end in. The worst part, I remember, was that I had to shoot arrows through it. And I had to do it because I turned out to be the best archer. And I had to shoot the arrows right past Arnold's head into the snake. Now, it was an easy shot. It'd be nothing if he wasn't there, but it really bothers you when somebody's there.
I remember one day going to the swimming pool, and the guy comes there and dumps in these huge snakes that are like this thick around it, and I'm swimming there, and he's dumping in this snakes, and they were just coming towards me. He says, "Don't worry about it, they're not dangerous."
Dr. Tiva came onto the set with a variety of snakes for me to get to know. Luckily, as a soldier in the U.S. Army, I was trained with the Rangers, and part of our survival, we had to befriend a snake, which means take a non-poisonous snake and take it into your association, put him in your uniform, let him sleep with you, get to know you, and at the end, of course, you ate him. So I know a little about snakes, and being a farm boy, I knew about snakes, except as farm boys, we tend to be very hostile to snakes. A snake was automatically evil, automatically harmful, and so we'd always destroy them. But I learned how to coexist with them. So when I came to the set, I had a little bit of background in that already. Perhaps too much, because the doctor said that the snake was too comfortable around me, and they had to sort of fluff him out to get him moving so he looked live.
The snake doctor was a wonderful guy, and he just did some wonderful stuff. And he was a really interesting character. He had these beautiful girls that would attend to him, and they would go and get the snakes and bring the snakes to him. And he would give everybody a snake. Everybody had their snake, and he said, "I can't stand how human beings don't trust and like snakes," because he loves snakes. So he gave me my own boa constrictor, and I'd wrap it around my neck, and I'd leave it there all day, and I was trying to get used to it. And of course, it got used to me, but I never kind of really got used to it.
I guess those Thulsadoon's metamorphosis into the snake is best taken for granted. In other words, it's best not explained. It is mythology. And any more than you need to explain the unicorn or the satyr, you don't explain Thulsa's snake.
The idea of him turning into a snake was really kind of that he has powers, that he can transmute into a snake, because he is the head of the snake cult. The way he changes into a snake was we just made a very, very good mask of him, and then we simply put a snake head armature behind it and just pushed it out. We did have a mechanical snake that comes out of his neck and starts to slither down, and then we made a very good miniature with a very big snake.
The temple on the mountain was the largest set piece in the picture, and the one I was most proud of. We worked on the design of that for a long time. I found the mountain, surveyed it, and we got it up as high as we could. John wanted it even higher, but it was going to be almost impossible. It was a big outdoor set. It had to be reinforced to hold 1,500 extras.
We didn't have the materials probably we should have had. We did have a construction foreman, Aldo Puccini. He would go out on the ground and he would draw a circle and he would put down a stake and he'd say that's where it's going to be, and it's going to start here and it's going to end here, and he'd just start building. There was no plans. It had sketches and drawings, but nothing else.
We love that scene of the crucifixion because it's the reverse of the real crucifixion, where the real crucifixion is Christ is up there and he wonders if God has forsaken him and he's helpless. And the Roman comes up and sticks him with the lance and everything and says, "There, where is your God now?" And of course what happens to Arnold is a complete opposite. It's so un-Christ-like, is that this vulture lands on him and starts picking at his wounds. The gods, in fact, are insulting him. Crom has deserted him. And what does he do? He does what is so great in R.E. Howard and so great in Conan always. He bites the vulture. He has nothing left but his teeth, and he bites the vulture and kills it and spits it out in defiance.
There was actually a real vulture leaning over to me, but then pulling back, and then we picked it up by putting this vulture that just died mysteriously, and I bit into that neck. And the reason why I remembered it very carefully was because right after that, the medics always ran up to me and gave me something to gargle with because of the danger of getting really, really sick because of this being still a real thing, except it was now stuffed and all that, but I mean, just very primitively done.